Well, thank you for joining me. This is great. I think this is a really fun way of being able to tell your story so that, people can put a face and a voice to the story too. Why don't we go ahead and you can just tell people a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, your family, give
Okay.
them an overview.
Well, my name is Steph, and I live in Utah with my husband and my 2.5-year-old son, Sonny. And this will be my 18th year this fall living in Utah from Ohio, and fell in love with the mountains, never left. And yeah, found a place here, found my friends, my home, my family, and we just love it. We love living here, and we made a switch from the city where we were for 15 years when I was pregnant, and decided to take the plunge when it felt scary then to buy a home, but I'm glad that we did because it's just getting even crazier.
Crazier and crazier. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Left the city and we came more to like a smaller town called Heber. It's 30 minutes outside of Park City, and Park City's always been my unattainable dream of where to live. So this was like a good compromise to live here, and we love it. And we have a house and quite a bit of land. We've got a garden going, and
Oh, yes.
we're loving where we're at. So yeah.
That is so great. And I have to say, I'm totally jealous of your garden beds. They are beautiful, and I love seeing them every summer. They're amazing.
Every year we're learning. It's a little bit harder to grow up here because it's a shorter season. It's a lot colder, but fun. And yeah, that's something that I've done almost everywhere that I've lived, starting growing up with a big farm, a big garden. And yeah, so we love it. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, that's great. So to start this conversation, I was actually, I saw that you reposted, my story on your stories, and you had mentioned gestational carrier. I didn't even think about that. Can you tell me sort of the difference between using the term gestational carrier versus surrogacy, or is it just an outdated term, or is there a difference?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I learned it as I went as well. So,
Okay.
and for most people, like if I'm just running into someone and they saw that I was pregnant, I just said, "Oh, I'm being a surrogate," because it's just like I think people know it that way. But
Mm-hmm.
the difference is if you surrogate, you're actually donating your own egg. So that
Oh,
is partially, definitely tied to your DNA. And if you are
okay.
gestational carrier, it is completely the parent's egg and sperm. Or if they were using a donor, say they were a gay couple, that they have embryo already. The embryo is already
Okay.
created, and I am just housing the baby. So that I'm a true gestational carrier because it was not my egg. I didn't donate an egg. It was 100% their baby.
So that's a big difference. And thank you for clarifying that because,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think a lot of people
No,
recognize that difference there.
no, I don't
Okay.
think they do. And then they also sometimes just assume that if you're being a surrogate, that you are donating your egg, which is in fact not the case. Like science is super neat and you can do all these crazy cool things now. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
yep. So for this family, it was 100% their embryo. And it was just, I carried it.
that is very amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did this start? How did you decide to do this? How did this come about?
Well, yeah. I guess the backstory when I was, I think around 20 or 21, I was a nanny for a family while I was going to college. They had one daughter and she could not have any more children. And she was like, "You're so great. Like, you love kids. You should totally be a surrogate." And I did kind of think about it at the time, but it was just they were quite a bit older and I was quite a bit younger, and
Mm-hmm.
my life yet, and so it never really came to be like a serious conversation, but it was in the back of my mind. And back then I thought
Oh,
I'd love to do that for somebody, but I think I need to like live my life and have children of my own first before
hmm.
that commitment. So it was something that I had always thought about. I'm an only child. I didn't really like that. I always dreamed of the big family, the big chaotic gatherings, kind of like your husband.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, and so then forward to I lived my life and had a lot of fun and made a lot of memories, and then we finally decided to have a family of our own. When I was 34, I gave birth to Sunny. And then how this journey began was my two very close friends, Emily and Laura. They just kind of half joking were like, hey, do you know anyone that would want to be a gestational carrier for their sister, because she's unable to have children, and it was a really trying time in the pandemic to find carriers because it was going in person. So
Great.
actually have one daughter via surrogate that is now 3, and they used an agency, but due to COVID and her kind of timeline, there just wasn't a lot of people going in person to fill these roles. And so they were really struggling, and their only option was there was a woman, I think in Seattle or California, that would have done it. And I think they would have went that route, but it would have been a different journey to not really be able to be part of the experience and at any of the appointments. And so they said, do you know of anyone in your circle? And I just said, maybe I would do it, and they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you'd be so great. Like, you loved being pregnant, which I did. I know it's not for everyone. Everyone has a different experience for sure. And so, yeah, it was kind of just like this little side thing. And then I thought about it more over the holidays, and I said, you know what, I really would like to meet with your sister and her husband and chat a little bit more about this in seriousness, because I'm kind of interested. And I do actually know this family. So they're, not in my complete inner circle, but I know who they are and I've met them. So yeah, so we went to dinner and chatted all of the details, and I came home and kind of talked about it with Nick, and I was like, I really want to do this. Like, I think it's super cool, and I'm pretty sure we will have more kids, but it wasn't in the cards at phase in life when this conversation started. I had a 1-year-old. I wasn't ready to have another child myself for, just various reasons. And I thought, why do I have to wait? Like there's kind of a risk no matter when you get pregnant, like you're same risks that yes, something could go wrong or whatever. And I think in my heart, I just knew that like what was meant to be would be. And if something did go wrong, thankfully it didn't, then, I'm blessed with one happy little guy, and that would be fine. So I was like, let's do it. And yeah, and that was kind of where it came to be. Like I loved being pregnant, and it was such a cool experience. I was so sad to see it end. Knowing when and if I would do it again. Like I said, I think we will have more kids, but when you have one, your mind's not really like there yet. And so I didn't want to pass up this opportunity. And it was kind of cool that they, it's a family member of my really good friends. And, it was like helping them grow their family. And so I was like, let's do it. Where do we start?
That is awesome. So, well, that's a good lead in then. So where do you start? I mean, in your situation, of course, you knew the family, so you had that connection. That's great. You've decided you're going to go for it. Then where do you go?
For sure. So for this time around, I think in this situation, it was helpful that they had done it one time before. They knew the perspective of meeting a complete stranger through an agency where everything is lined out X, Y, and Z and very self-explanatory, which I will touch on that they had a very positive experience as well. They loved their carrier. She was a mom of 3, and then she signed up to do this. And I don't think that the labor and delivery went quite as planned. And due to some other health stuff, she was unable to do it again. But that was also reassuring for me to hear, because they loved this woman so much and she loved doing it, that had she not, age, weight, other factors, and ended in a C-section, she would have done it again for them. And I thought
Okay.
super cool. But
Mm-hmm.
for us, you start by going to a fertility center, and there are coordinators there that help you every step of the way. Usually, if you're looking to be, well, probably either, but definitely a gestational carrier, they already had started this journey several years ago by harvesting her eggs
Okay.
and his sperm samples, and then creating these embryos. And unfortunately, you start with so many and then it dwindles down, and then
Mm-hmm.
rate them of quality of if they will actually take, and then you're only left with a certain amount and
Right, right.
are frozen. So they were paying to store these eggs at that fertility center. So they already had a relationship there. So for most people, you'd probably start by reaching out to a fertility center and speaking with a coordinator about that aspect. But they will
Mm-hmm.
help you if you need a donor on either side, whether that's an egg donor or a sperm donor. They can guide you every way of how to do those things. But so we kind of started there
Okay.
along with some legal stuff. Even though I wasn't worried in the slightest about anything in that aspect, I just think there's a lot of things that, yeah, I didn't know until you
Mm-hmm.
it. And like, just for the state, for
Mm.
this for somebody, there has to be a legal write-up no matter what.
Got
So
it.
so
Yeah.
part thing, but before you even get there, I go to the fertility center and I get basically like a physical and a complete exam, and I make sure that I check out in all of these categories to be a carrier. You do
Okay.
have in certain good health, to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go to a couple appointments completely by myself and check off all of these boxes. And and then I had a procedure done, which was kind of like one of these things where it's an added bonus when you're doing this for somebody. I didn't have anything wrong, but there were like little, I guess, almost leftover follicle type things, like from me birth, that if I were to just get pregnant again, they may not affect me at all. You can just live with them, but they just want like a complete clean slate when you're carrying someone else's child. So I did, I think I was under general anesthesia, and it was like a super quick procedure. And I checked off all of these boxes and then moved into, the second step, which is yeah, doing some legal stuff and coming to an agreement on varying things with the people that you're doing it for. You know, there is things that you just don't think about, like financially. There was just things set up that, God forbid I died in birth.
Mm-hmm.
My son and Nick were, going to have something there, or, these situations like an emergency hysterectomy, or, just kind of that kind of stuff. So we had to go talk through all of that, and then agreement there. And then there's a psychological examination for myself and my husband. So that was pretty lengthy. It was like a 4-hour Zoom thing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
not quite prepared for that, and it all went really well. And the woman was like super nice, but you just feel like I don't know, like you're interviewing for something like super important. Like after we're like, did we fail? Like, what if they're gonna say we can't do it? Like, but it was also really insightful to speak to this psychologist, because she also asks the questions that like are important. And when I was just like, let's do it, she was like, well, what are you going to do when this baby comes in? Are you going to do in the kid? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, sure, if they want me to, but that's like, oh no, we don't recommend that. And I'm like, okay, well, like,
Oh, yeah.
so it was almost like you're being quizzed for something that you couldn't prepare for, but really, like, I learned a lot along the way by going through that. So stuff, all that, then you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one quick question there. So how long did all of that take then before they tried to implant the embryo? And I guess I should ask, did it take right away, the
It,
first?
fortunately, it did.
Awesome. Awesome.
A low percentage, they say.
Okay.
So that was another thing in the contract. They said it was completely up to me, but that I want to attempt, because if it fails, it's not just go back in the next week. I basically have to go through all of these hormone shots, like go
Yeah.
period cycle, all of these things again. So it is like tolling, not just for them if it would have failed, but for me. And it sounded like, just from speaking with the director at the fertility center, most people agree to 3 times, because
Okay.
it usually doesn't take on the first time. So that's what I agreed was 3, and fortunately it took on the first try.
That's amazing. So how long would that take then? Let's say it fails the first time, you're doing it again. What's that whole cycle like?
Well, I don't know for sure, but it can be another 1 to 3 months before you
Okay.
try, because they have a system for everything. Like I had a calendar of, like I'm taking morning, injecting myself at night. I learned a lot in doing that also women that struggle to get pregnant, um,
Mm-hmm.
I could never like understand that because I didn't go through it. So I don't want to speak for them, but I did get a taste of
Mm-hmm.
some that if you're just trying to get pregnant on your own and struggling, like that was probably like the least fun part of all of it was, like you just have to, you're taking medication at this certain time. You're
Yeah.
injecting yourself with all these things because you're starting to trick your body, like to be ready for pregnancy. But
Mm-hmm.
for us, it was sped up a little bit because she had done it before and she knew the people. And so all of this started by talk in December, January, and then the implantation was the end of April.
Okay.
3 months of meds, shots, doctor's appointments before we could
Oh.
get started. And the director did tell me that was that's on the faster side of things. That you really,
Wow.
if you go in and you want to start this journey from clean slate, expect a year for everything. But if
Wow.
you already have your embryos, then it's usually about 6 months from all of this. But
Wow.
yeah, so it was, like January, February, March, and April were kind of like all of the steps to prepare myself. And
Mm-hmm.
presentation was in April, end of April.
That's great. And then the baby was born the following January, is that
Yeah,
right?
he was born this January. So
Yep.
I came up a couple days ago on 3 months postpartum.
Wow, amazing. I'm looking forward to asking you about postpartum as well, but I want to get back to, so when you're talking with the psychologist, it's interesting when Zach told me that you were acting as a gestational carrier. I guess we were using the term surrogate, but now we know. I thought, oh, Steph is like the perfect person for it. Like, you just have this personality that is very giving, but I also think you have a just real positive look at the world. And I think that that's probably very necessary when you're doing something so giving for someone else. I bet there's a lot of emotion involved in this. I mean, put hormones aside, right? That's a whole beast in and of itself. But so when you're talking to the psychologist, what are some other things that came up that they want you to think about as you're going through this journey? Or what came about for you? Just, I mean, carrying this child, but knowing that you then won't parent the child.
Right. So she asked a lot of questions about, at the beginning, it was more about each of us. Like she needed like a whole profile that she's learning in a day.
Sure.
My home life, my growing up, all of these things, like what do I do? Same thing for Nick. Wanted to know about just everything about our lives. And then, yeah, the other questions that were more like for me were, well, are you going to tell your son? How are you going to tell your son about this journey? And
Mm-hmm.
one I hadn't given a lot of thought to, like initially, because he was so young.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was like, well, it's not a secret at all. And it's definitely something when he's old enough to understand that, like, I would love to share with him because it's so cool. And I don't think enough people even really know about it or what it is to really fully understand it, you know? But in our situation, I didn't really talk about it a lot. And that was just with because I just felt like it was really confusing to, you know, in a normal setting, if I was pregnant and having another baby, I'd be, oh, there's a baby, talking about this baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he aged, it's like I come home and my belly's smaller and there's no baby. And I think that that would be really confusing for him. So, like, lived life and openly talked about it with our friends and everyone and all of those things, but I didn't really like treat my growing belly journey, like I didn't share so much of that with a 1.5-year-old. You know, I think it was easier that way, but kids have the intuition, because without even talking about it, as I got super huge, he'd be poking it, and
Sure. Yeah.
and sometimes he would say, baby, baby.
Oh, wow.
And it's like we wouldn't deny it. It was like, yeah, but we weren't like, mama's having a baby's coming home. So I think I just kind of explained that to the therapist that, like, down the road, for sure, like, I took pictures, I, you know, like, I want to remember this journey, but there'll be a time and a place. Now, if I had, say, maybe a 4-year-old or something, it would have been a different thing, you know, like, of how I would have, you know, shared it, which is interesting because the other woman that did it for these guys, her children were older, and she chose to also not tell them. And so,
Oh, wow.
days away from giving birth, and then her kids, I guess, were like, mommy, you're getting really fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda.
And I think she did, but probably also too for her life. I think she just wanted to, like, live life and be a mom, and, you know, kept them out of it. And I just chose to keep Sonny out of it because of his age, you know.
Sure.
And, yeah.
Did he ask when you came home and your belly was not big anymore? As big?
Not right away. He didn't, because I was just wearing, like, big sweatshirts as I was, like, recovering. But
Yeah.
then, you know, like, as we were snuggling and reading books, like, he started poking at what used to be rock hard was now squishy soft.
Yeah.
I think he was, like, confused, like, where did that go?
Yeah.
You know, we're just now at 2.5 getting into actually being able to, like, start some conversations with him. So I think the time and place in my life that I did it, I didn't really have to face some of these things that might have been more confusing if I had older kids, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really cool, because I wouldn't have thought about, I think I would have assumed that, like, you know, the kids get all involved, and I wondered what that would be like. But I think in your case, that's really neat that, yeah, he was able to just roll with it. And I think you're right. Toddlers are just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I'm interested, but yeah, whatever you told me, it sounds good.
Totally.
You know?
I would have come home with a baby, and he had to start, like, sharing his space and his things and his time.
Whole other thing, yeah.
It would have been a whole other thing.
So how was this pregnancy compared to Sunny's pregnancy?
They were very similar. They were, yeah, very similar. I was fortunate to have what I felt like was an easy pregnancy. And I shouldn't use the term easy because it's a lot of work. But, you know, like, I worked up until my due date with Sunny, and he was 4 or 6 days late. And, you know, like, I just lived life and basically tried to do as much as I could, like normal. And this time around, it was the same. You know, I worked up until 39 weeks, 4 days with this guy. And still took some trips, still, you know, like, life. It was the only aspect that was harder was that I had a toddler this time. And so a little more tired as and that was due to chasing someone else around. But I loved the journey, loved all of it. And it was almost a better labor, which I hate to say that because like birth is the coolest thing ever, but I knew what to expect.
Yeah.
No one could have prepared me like for no hypnobirthing, no anything I did the first time around could have prepared me for that labor. And so at least this time, not only did it go quicker, I understood my body more. I understood
Definitely.
action was coming. First,
Mm-hmm.
the first time around, I just thought I was in dying pain, and it never stopped.
I know. I know. It's so true. It's so
Yeah,
true. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Definitely. You have a reference point,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So the birth was great. I mean, tell me, you were, uh, for those who don't know you, who will be watching this, you were in a car accident right before
I,
you gave birth.
yeah. So we had
I'm
this.
so happy you're okay. Oh my goodness.
I think about it all the time because when you look at my car and how I hit the animal, I don't really think people realize how bad it actually could have been. And
Mm-hmm.
drive these like freeways all the time, and they're wildlife where we live, and it was very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I had a great pregnancy. Wonderful experience. They went to most all the appointments with me, and then we
Oh,
were
nice.
yeah, it was weird because of COVID, but we rolled with it, and
Good.
yeah, we made it to 39 weeks and 2 days. And another, I guess, interesting thing before the car accident story was they started prepping me at 36 weeks saying, have you scheduled your 39-week induction? And I said, no, no, new to me. And I went back to the same midwives that I had Sunny with, which
Okay.
was my choice. And the parents really care. They were like, whatever you want to do, you want this, that, like you choose. And I had a great experience, even though it's 45 minutes from my house. So I went there again, but they started saying this, and I was like, no one told me. Like, what are you talking about? And then they kind of said, well, it probably should have been discussed before, but you are over 35 and it's an IVF baby. And I guess that
Oh.
I don't know a lot, something that I do want to look into, these little things I learned along the way that I wasn't told by anyone. IVF babies, they have a slightly more increased chance of stillbirth if you carry. I don't know why. And they say it's also more common in frozen to thawed embryos than fresh. But that is another choice you can do in this journey, is like if all the stars align, then the eggs and embryos can be harvested and never frozen and then implanted.
Okay.
But situation frozen to thawed, there can be this risk. And so I wasn't really thrilled to hear that because it to happen on its own. And the parents were super supportive. They were like, we didn't know this either, like we weren't aware. So kind of like, let's just keep going to these appointments. Everything always was fine, at checking out fine, baby, like all of my vitals. And so we had some supportive midwives that were like, if you want to keep waiting, that's fine. Like we have to say, these things. And so I went to Hamilton, and I was driving home from Hamilton after a night out with my girlfriends, and it was a Sunday, and I had an appointment anyways on Monday, but I was driving home and a moose hit me. How I like to say it, because this moose came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Really, like he took out the car in the speeding lane, and it happened so fast that I was in the middle lane going 70 miles an hour, and she never even braked. There was no time for her to brake. This animal at almost midnight ran across the road, so her car got more of the brunt of it, but it just flopped into my lane, and I could even blink, I ran over this 1,000-pound animal and closed my eyes and screamed, and somehow never let go of the steering wheel, and my airbags went off, and I just like had to take a moment to breathe. And then I thought my car was on fire because I've never had an airbag go off, and so it was so smoky, and I just like got out of the car, and it was a wild evening, to say the least. Thankfully, some people helped, and I was somehow completely fine, and the baby was completely fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Her little guy got like, the impact of the airbag, because my stomach took all of it, and
wow.
Someone stopped and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Fine, but I'm 9 months pregnant and I think we should call an ambulance."
Yeah.
So they came and they checked out my vitals, but they actually don't have anything to monitor a baby on an ambulance. So
okay.
They were like, "You're fine. Your blood pressure's a little high, but that's to be expected. You just hit a moose." So I opted to call the parents, kind of explain to them what happened. They were completely, scared for me, but understanding. Her husband last spring had actually totaled their truck by hitting a deer with their in it. So they understand,
oh my goodness.
But I've lived here 18 years and never, I don't think, even ran over a possum, and I just take out the biggest animal aside from an elk.
While you're 9 months pregnant. Yep.
So, yep. So I went to the hospital, the one that was closer to us, and just standard protocol. I was fine, but they were like, "You have to sit on a monitor for 4 hours now, just to whatever." And he was fine. And so I had my regular appointment the next morning. And when I went there, just kind of like, "Okay, it's strike 3. You are over 35. You are having an IVF baby and a moose. We support your wishes, but you are carrying a child and you've made it so far." And that's where my mind shifted to is someone else's baby, and I want to give them a healthy baby. And if God forbid there was something, he was just jolted so much and was fine then, it would have been not very good if I would have, waited days and then woken up and had a different outcome. So I just said, "Okay, let's schedule it." So then 2 days later, scheduled an induction. So that was something I hadn't done before, and I was really nervous and grouchy about because I think babies will come when they want to come, and not gonna lie, I wasn't really thrilled to see the journey end in this way that I felt like might end in a C-section, which there's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of, I feel like, friends and people I've talked to that just kind of felt like sometimes when you get induced, it doesn't end the way that you want, because but every journey is different. So this was just me in my head. And I will say that it was wonderful.
Great.
I was not thrilled to do it. And I checked into the hospital at 11. They gave me the Pitocin at 1. And I was completely fine until 5:30. And that's when the contractions got unbearable. And I delivered him at just before 7 p.m. So I went in with this super quick.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So it was cool. It was unfortunate at the end. Due to COVID, the parents were not feeling well, and because of our unique situation, and allowing extra bodies in the room because it wasn't my baby, we all had to test, and because planned, we were able to test. I tested that day that we decided to have my results, and that way, knowing that Nick could be in there with me for my support. They could be in there, but unfortunately they were positive. And
shoot.
Yep, even though it was their baby, they were not the patients. And so it just became an even crazier ending to this journey. I was super devastated for them that they couldn't be there, but we rallied in less than 24 hours and came up with a plan. And my good girlfriends that they're related to this, I invited one of them to come and set up a laptop and FaceTime the birth, which I would have normally never done.
Amazing.
It's kind of cool to afterwards watch myself birth the baby. That was pretty neat. And yeah, and she took pictures, and her wife had ended in a C-section, so it was really cool for her to see a live birth from a different from a vaginal birth. And so parents were FaceTimed in, and then grandma came also because there needed to be somebody to take this baby so that there was no, and of course Nick and I would have stepped up to do it, but it probably wasn't right. But like, this was the craziest turn of events, but everyone felt really strongly like someone else should be there. And so grandma took the baby after the whole cord thing, and they just laid him on my stomach instead of my chest to do the cord pulsing. And then grandma cut cord, she did skin to skin, and then she basically stayed with him in her own room, and I had my own room. And it was just like the wildest ending to the journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is the part I think about a lot, and I think, like, what is that moment like? I mean, you know what it's like to give birth, and the feeling is like total relief, and then you get your baby's on your chest, you might nurse, you might just snuggle, What was that like? Like, someone takes the baby, or maybe you were so prepared for it that you just knew that moment was happening right away.
Yeah, I mean, the whole week leading up to it, like, I was probably the most frazzled just because, like, the moose and COVID and all these things that, like, I wasn't prepared for. But mentally and emotionally, the entire time, like, I never felt a bond, like, I went into it knowing, like, this is someone else's baby, and I'm helping them, and I'm doing this for them, and I'm just literally like helping a child that was already conceived grow, and I liked being pregnant. I was a little scared again for the labor because Sunny's wasn't easy. It was 22 hours, so this was a great like a less than 5 hour thing was, but yeah, no, I felt really determined at the end. Like, whereas with Sunny, I was so exhausted. I were on my own in the middle of the night and got no sleep. And so by the time that I pushed on and off for 7 hours with him, I was just so exhausted. And of course, it was still one of the greatest moments of my life, but I was, whew. And this time it was like, I went in, I knew what I was doing. I was nervous because I had never been induced, but everything, like, I had a really, really great midwife, and I loved my nurse. I think the people around you are like, can make or break your experience. And
Yes.
this grandma that I had never met, Nick and I were both kind of like, oh, this is going to be interesting. She was amazing. Her name is Penny. I won't give last names, but they call her Penny Poppins, and she has 7 children of her own, unmedicated.
Amazing.
And like doula woman. She's putting bags on me, massaging me without me asking. Like, I asked for a better stranger in all of these crazy turn of events to like be there. But like, you're great. Like, so yeah, when it was getting close and I was getting frustrated, and I don't think there were that many scary moments, but he had a super short cord, and so as I was pushing, they were seeing heart rate dropping, and it tell you, but this was only 17 minutes of pushing though, so it all happened so quick. But I was going, and I could hear the chatter, and I was like, this baby is coming out, like, and I just didn't break, and like ignored everyone's counting, and I just kept pushing and
Yeah.
pushing. And on the third one, he was out, and it was like a wave of relief, and like I did it, and I think it was cool to like, I wish they could have been there in person, but I could hear them like cheering from, hey,
Oh.
friend is there and Nick is there, and I like loved my nurse, and like,
Oh.
and I heard him crying, and so like it was so cool, like it was so cool and rewarding, and like
Oh.
it was amazing. Like I loved it, and if I was 10 years younger and had infinite amounts of money, like I would have a dozen children. Like, and I know not all of them would go that way, but it's, not for everyone. But for me, it was super positive. It was absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
so they laid him on your belly, and then Penny Poppins took him.
Yeah. And Penny Poppins took him, and
Love it.
got cleaned up and all of that. And I went to my room, and my girlfriend brought, Jimmy John's, because,
Yes.
like eat deli meat for 9 months.
Yeah, I know, right?
Everything in moderation. But yeah, like threw on some trash TV and ate deli sandwiches and cookies, and felt like a new woman compared to the first time that I gave birth, because that time I was so swollen. I had stitches. I had a catheter from pushing for so long. And so I really couldn't even get up. And this time I was like, I know you do need to rest, but I felt so great. Like when it was time to get up to go pee for the first time, I wasn't scared.
Mm-hmm.
And, due to it not being my baby, my second birth, and COVID, they released me the next day at 11 a.m. They were like, you can stay on, but we're so short-staffed on nurses, and like you can rest at home if you choose. And I was like, yeah, like I don't need to be here. Like I don't feel like I need to be waited on hand and foot. And so, yeah, I was like able to walk out of the hospital almost 24 hours.
Perfect.
And Penny stayed with the baby, and then needed to go home with the baby, and she had a friend come help her, because unfortunately the parents were so sick that they were advised to kind of so they got to like see him by car at first and masked up, and then around 5 days.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine.
Reward. But, all these things aside, it's like they have this child forever now. And so, like, it sucks that some of this other stuff happened, but it's like they still got the best gift ever.
So true. And it's like it becomes, minute once, like, as time passes and you look back, you go, yeah, those 5 days weren't fun, I'm sure, for them. And then but you're right. Now they have their baby, and that's incredible.
Yep.
What was
great.
What was postpartum like for you?
It was pretty good, I think. Yeah. Like I didn't get depressed. I didn't get super emotional. I had one emotional day, and that was the same with Sunny when my milk came in. And you're like, what is happening? Like that day, stay away, because,
Totally. Yes.
Poor Nick, like my hormones it wasn't like waves of sadness or anything like that. It was just like your body is about to start this next crazy thing, and like you can't. So that day was hard, but the rest of it was like, it really was fine, and it was a much easier recovery having done it one time before. So, yep,
That's great.
Near as much time off work because I didn't have a baby and I wasn't losing sleep, and so yeah, I rested and went back to work, and I still pumping for them and getting them all of my milk. So I'm not like completely done with this journey yet. So.
Okay, because I was just going to say to you, so what do you do to stop your milk? But I guess you didn't want to stop the milk. You're pumping and giving them his milk. Amazing.
Yeah. So we just kind of, that's just like an agreement between us. It's not like a legal thing or anything. Like she well, they are grateful for whatever I could give, but they're also absolutely fine with formula. And I was like, not putting time on it. I'm just going to see how it goes, and whatever happens, happens. And so I started in the hospital that first day. And that was a little bit rough because, first of all, you don't have milk and you're using this like terrible hospital grade pump. But we would get syringes of colostrum and
Mm-hmm.
the colostrum. Then my milk came in, and yeah, I was trying to do the math before this because I really wish, this is one thing just for fun, I would have written it down to know how many thousands, ounces, because you don't know if you choose to breastfeed. Like, I don't know, like Sunny I didn't even pump until he was a month old. So like you don't,
Mm-hmm.
this time around, it's like I just give them a drop. They live kind of close to me a couple times a week, but
Wow.
I figured I average about 30 ounces a day times 7 days a week. So if I'm doing the math right, it's about 6,000 ounces a month. I'm on month 3. So,
Amazing.
but I chose this time around. I'm not, like I'm not killing myself to do it. So I don't pump through the night, and I never have. So I probably could have more if I wanted, but I just pump every 3 to 4 hours in the day, and I'm still getting it, and we'll see like how long it goes, like if it starts going on its own, it's fine, like it is what it is. And I don't mind it, like if I minded it, I wouldn't do it. And I know that there's no pressure to do it, but I know how like good it can be for the baby, and I don't mind. So yeah, I'm just
That's really cool.
doing that for
So, what's that?
I'm just doing that for now.
I love that. And that kind of leads into my next question. I was wondering, what is the connection going to be like for you and this child going forward? And do you see the baby? Have you held the baby, or do you just drop your milk off and kind of that's your connection?
So in the hospital, I held him, right, like, well, after the whole skin to skin and all of that, like,
Mhm.
hold him. And I was fine too, like you said, I do, like, I mean, I'm not always positive, but I do feel like I have a positive outlook, and I was like going to be fine with whatever, like I would respect whatever they, as the parents, wanted. And like they really did, prior to them getting sick, they wanted their own room separate to bond.
Mhm.
I fully supported that, Um,
Mhm.
so I had him after birth. And then the next day, like we went and visited him, and, my friend was there, and they were all helping Penny. And so I held him again,
Oh.
and, and I've seen him a couple times. Usually with the milk though, I'm just like, I do it on my way to work, and I just drop it and respect
Mhm.
their space. And, like, so I'm not sure what the future will be. That's kind of like up to them. Like I look at him and feel any form of an emotional bond at all. I'm worried about that, but like that's more up to them and what they're comfortable with, and I think for them it's like this is their baby, it's 100%, and it's their choice. And I think down the road when the son and daughter are old enough, I'm sure maybe she'll share with them like how they came to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a great relationship with her. It became stronger through all of this, like we became more friends at all these appointments and
Oh, for
all these,
sure.
and so yeah. But I think for now, like for the sake of her daughter who is 3.5, and like when I see them at things, it's just more like these are my friends,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna like talk about it. But of course, like she always has been like, you have to like come and see him and whatever. So I think like it'll be an open relationship, and it's just and anything that needs to be like broadcasted every time. Like I I birthed you, but it's
Right, right.
a thing that like I'll never forget. And and if she wants to share that with him one day when he can understand like this is the person, that's up to her. Like I don't really care. She wants to keep it private because she just does, and it could be very confusing, I think, to a kid until they're fully able to comprehend. I'm cool with that too, like yeah,
It's incredible. This is so amazing. I mean, would you do it again?
I would. I would do
Yeah.
it 10 out of 10. Yeah,
Wow.
but I loved it so much. Like, I'm sure, I'm sure my family is like, okay, take a break. But I was like, let's do it again. But for me, I probably would like to have another kid. So I'll probably just take the next, year, half year, and like fully recover, because it does.
Mhm.
And then seriously think about if we're going to grow our own family. However, if we decided to be just content with one, I will be very sad to think that that was my last birth ever. So, yes, I would seriously do it again for somebody. And maybe it wouldn't be as incredible. Maybe I would be miserable, but like these are all things that like you sign up for. Like nobody forced me to do this. Like I wanted to do this, and and I've had tons of friends that have not had great birth experiences, and I feel for them, and like you don't know. Like everybody's journey is so different. So yeah, and
Very true. Very true.
but it was cool because I have a lot of friends that weren't as fortunate to get pregnant right away. Their stories all look so different. Most of them
Mhm.
growing their families or have finally got their wishes granted, but it was eye-opening to do all of the stuff leading up to it and know like for a
Mhm.
moment, I could kind of feel that like I was
Mhm.
this baby would take, and and at one point
Yeah.
after I was positive, like I was driving to a friend's barbecue and like blood and had to pull over, and I was like, oh no, like what is this? And that was very scary. Like I had to call her and tell her I don't know what's happening. Like but we learned that it's just another one of these kooky things with IVF, and
Oh, interesting.
be almost like when they are inseminating you, there can be like an air bubble type thing that can go in,
Oh.
and then it creates a blood bubble, like a giant water balloon, but blood bubble.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes they just dissolve back into your body. Sometimes they come out. And
That would be scary to,
yeah.
yeah.
And so I learned that was all that was, thankfully, and that if
Wow.
you're a miscarriage, you would be bleeding for a very, very long time. But yeah, like I would 10 out of 10 do it again. And anyone that's like curious about it, like I'm always like, yeah, like I'll tell you my journey, like, and I really think like people are like, I just could never. And I'm like, well, you may not want to ever, and that's fully respectable, but like,
Mhm.
could you? You could, like you're like the best gift ever. And
Yes. Yeah.
if you go in with the mentality it's not your baby and you're willing to sign your body up for some hard work, like it's pretty cool.
Definitely. Well, like I said, I think it takes a certain personality, and I think you're the perfect person for it.
Oh, well,
And they are a lucky family. That's amazing.
yeah, I was like, with all this science that's out there, is there a way that I could carry someone else's baby and my own, like go for twins, do it.
Just get it, right?
Yeah.
Get it done. Steph, I'm sure that that is possible somehow out there
I have to find like the right family that's like willing, when you
to
already
do this with you.
that struggles to be like, I don't know if I want to like precious embryo going in there with two because there's a higher risk, and
Definitely.
but it would be
Definitely.
cool.
It sure would be. It really would be. Oh, well, thank you. What's that?
We only put one in also, I should say, because that we were both in agreement on that. They could have put two,
Okay.
but they were not in the market for the possibility of twins. So,
Gotcha.
but I
Okay.
challenge if they wanted.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
This was great. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you shared the story. I've been just in love with it ever since I found out you were doing it. I thought, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was fun to chat about it too and like remember it because it just goes in a blink, and I can't believe it's already been 3 months, and I can't like all of that happened over a year period, and then like life goes on, and this
Yeah.
baby like 3 months old now, and like on his way. Yeah, so it was really cool, and I'm glad that we got to to chat. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And I think this is a great format going forward. It worked out. We got on IG Live somehow
We did.
together, so
We did
we
it.
did it.
Yeah.
Well,
Don't
thank you.
forget
What's that?
questions though. Do not come to me because I am the least tech savvy.
Oh, well, it worked. It worked great.
It
Well, thank
worked.
you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone who watched. And I can't wait. I'm so excited. We had like 7 people viewing, and I know we'll have people rewatch it later. So this has been
Yeah.
great.
And anyone that has questions, happy to answer them. It was a cool experience for sure, and I just don't think enough people know or understand it, and it's just super foreign.
Yeah.
But really, it's not, and like it's not for everybody, but it can help people grow a family like
I
tremendously.
think you're right. It does seem super foreign for a lot of people, but the
Yeah,
way you told the story, it just feels so natural
yeah,
and so really, really positive and
totally. I just don't think a lot of people
incredible.
are informed about it, and I learned a lot doing it too. But like
Mhm.
I know other people, like I have a family member, he and his husband are thinking about like growing a family, and like they called me and they were just like, wow, like we didn't know where to begin, and like this was so helpful. Like
That's
now
awesome.
I feel like it's attainable, like it's possible. And so yeah, there are many ways. Like you can either find someone, you can go through an agency, put the word there, like and yeah, and you never know, you might find a friend that'll be like, hey, I'll do
Exactly.
it.
Oh, that's so great. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, of course. And I hope
And
that
I'll,
great rest of your day.
you too. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.